Hello, so my name is Lily and today I'm going to be reading the first chapter of every single book on my physical TBR. I am by no means the first to do this. I think the first video I saw was Kayla from Books and Lala, but there are definitely other people doing this as well, and I think it'll be a really good way to gauge what I actually want to read. Recently I did a video where I was reading books by publishers that I had previously enjoyed in the past to see if that was a good way to prioritize my TBR. It wasn't. One of the books I ended up picking was Secret Identity by Alex Segura, and I read the first 2 chapters and I didn't want to finish it. And it reminded me about DNFing. I DNF sometimes, but mostly by the time I realize that I'm not enjoying a book or that it's not really pulling me to finish it, I've already invested so much time into it that like I just might as well finish it. So I think a good way to, accurately gauge if I actually do want to read these books that I think I want to read is read the first chapter. So let's go ahead and take a look at the books I'm going to be reading, or starting. So this is my TBR shelf. I have 27 books on it. Actually, hold on, this isn't even accurate. What am I saying? We have to add these 3 books to this shelf because I own other books by these authors and I wanted them all together next to each other on my actual shelves because they looked good, but I haven't read these. Here's another one. My bad. Let me actually take another look to make sure I don't have to do this again. Okay, that's it for real this time. So I actually have 32 books on my TBR shelf, and I think, a few more floating around in other places. So I'm excited, I'm ready, I'm gonna get to reading. I think I'm just gonna go in this order. Let's get into it. Okay, the first book I pick up to read is Recursion by Blake Crouch. Apparently I've already read the first chapter. I got 73 pages in. Okay, so this book alternates perspectives and timelines. One perspective is Barry, who's a cop in 2018, and the other is Helena, who's a scientist slash researcher in 2007. So I just read the first perspective, the first section, chapter, whatever, from each of their perspectives. When I bought this book, I knew what it was about and I was really excited. I don't know what it's about now. I didn't reread the synopsis. There is a phenomenon called false memory syndrome that Barry is investigating, and Helena is trying to create a technology that will let us preserve our most precious memories. So far, in just the first section, Barry encounters a woman who is trying to commit suicide because of her false memories, or they're driving her crazy, and Helena is trying to get funding for this project that she's trying to do. So nothing super concrete. This is giving Severance a little bit. Guy who's only seen Severance. This is kind of like Severance. It doesn't help that the main girl's name is Helena. So, but memories and remembering a life that isn't yours. But is it yours? Because it's you. I am definitely intrigued by the first little bits. It's worrying that I got over 70 pages in and stopped reading it, and I don't remember that experience at all. But I do think I'm gonna keep this on my shelves and I wanna finish it at some point. Hi, I'm coming to you from the future with the picture on my wall because I got tired of this blank white background because I haven't gotten around to decorating this corner yet. Anyways, I forgot that I wanted to rate each first chapter out of 10. So I'm just gonna pop in periodically with my ratings of the ones I already read. So for Recursion, I think I would give this a 6 out of 10. So, The Knockoff by Lucy Sykes and Joe Piazza is about a woman who has been in the fashion publishing industry for 15 years, and now her magazine is going completely digital and she kind of has to catch up. I read the prologue in the first chapter and that took me to page 17 and I enjoyed it, but mostly I am just thinking about how much I love Ugly Betty and The Devil Wears Prada, movies and TV shows that revolve around journalists and publishing and fashion. I kind of love. And I haven't actually read a book like that. So I think I could like this. I'd probably give this a 6 or 7 out of 10. Okay, I read like the first page of this and yeah, this isn't happening. This was a library book sale purchase, which means I lost my mind when I went in there and I thought I was a completely different person who reads completely different books. This is An American Triptych, Anne Bradstreet, Emily Dickinson, and Adrienne Rich by Wendy Martin, which compares and contrasts all 3 of their works. I am not well educated in poetry, and while I definitely could like learn stuff from this, I feel like this is geared towards people who like already know a little bit about these people and their work. And I like vaguely know stuff about Emily Dickinson, but I could not tell you anything about the other 2 poets, so I don't think this is for me. Whoa, okay, so this is Vivienne by Emilia Russo, and this is told over the course of a week, and they're not really chapters, they're just like sections, but they're so short, they're like the length of chapters, and it's all told in, okay, let's see. A Greek chorus of internet comments and text messages to ask the questions: what is the cost of vision? What is the price of art? What connects creation and procreation, a life and an afterlife? Okay, so I love when books are like not written in normal prose. These mostly read so far as like Twitter threads. I feel like I see these people on Twitter every single day. Like, this is so accurate. It's like kind of like, am I on Twitter right now? But this is about a surrealist artist named Vivienne Volker, and there is controversy over the fact that she possibly had a hand in this other artist's suicide named Wilma Lang, because she was involved with Wilma's husband, and people sort of blame her for Wilma's suicide. I haven't really gotten into the full plot, but what happened in the first section was Vivienne's work was chosen to be in a group show of forgotten surrealist women that also included Wilma Lang, and all like the Twitter threads people are very mad about Vivienne's inclusion, and so they like start tagging the gallery or the museum in all these tweets, posts, whatever, being like, hey, remove her, like she did all this stuff. Then at the end of this first chapter, the gallery like puts out a statement saying that they made the very hard decision to remove her work from the show. I am like so intrigued by this. I kind of want to keep reading it all right now. I hope I'm like hyping up so much now, but I hope I really love it. This is a 10 out of 10. Okay, the first chapter of this is like 40 pages, so I read the first 10, and I didn't even get to a stopping point before I put it down. I was in the middle of a sentence. This is Road 7 by Keith Rawson. I want to like it so bad, and I think I will. Just the part that I was at, it was exposition, and like kind of boring exposition, but I think once the plot starts, I will like this, so I'm gonna keep it, especially because it's kind of new. I bought it in the last few months. Not gonna give up yet. This is about this guy who becomes like an assistant researcher to this cryptozoologist, and they find a unicorn. Like, that seems really good, and the cover's great. I do think once things start like heating up, I will like this more. Also, the main character, he was describing a headache he was getting, and it like gave me a headache. Like, I was feeling the headache as he was describing it. And my attention was definitely drifting way more than with any of the other chapters I've read so far. So that's really disappointing, but I'm gonna keep it. Unfortunately, I think this is gonna be like a 3 out of 10. Moving on. So, The Summer Queen by Rachelle Hassan is the sequel to The Buried and the Bound, which I read 2 years ago, and I really liked. And the third book, it either comes out at the end of this year or sometime next year, and I think it's only 3 books, so I'm probably gonna wait to read this and the second one at the same time because I definitely need to reread the first one. So I'm just gonna do like a full series binge when the third one comes out. The first book is about these 3 teenagers, Aziza, Leo, and Tristan, and they meet and become connected because they are all like sort of magical in some way. It's like fairies. Changelings and pixies and an evil hag witch. And that's what the first book is about, is sort of defeating the hag. And then the second book is like, I don't know yet. It follows a reveal that happens at the end of the first book. And that's sort of what the main plot is going to be focused around, I think, so I can't really tell you. Since I don't really remember a lot about the first book, I can't give this first chapter a super high rating, but I think it's gonna be like a 5, 6. That like feels low, but it's just because I don't remember the first book. I moved again because that white wall was just so depressing to me, even with the picture. So I'm in my chair in front of my bookshelves. The lighting's a little more uneven over here, but it looks prettier, right? You're welcome for that. Universality by Natasha Brown. The first chapter section of this was, again, like almost 50 pages, so I read the first 15. I wanted to pick this up because it is, I think, one of the March selections for the Lesbian Feminist Book Club that A Sunny Book Nook runs. I haven't read any of the picks in time for like any live show discussions yet. I read Woo Woo was one of their picks last year, and I read it after the fact. I don't actually know if I'm gonna get to this in time for the discussion, but this is about a crime. During an illegal rave, a young man is nearly bludgeoned to death with a solid gold bar, and a journalist is trying to uncover what happened. The first little bit I read didn't really draw me in. Again, it wasn't the entire first section just because it was so long. Once I do like get into this, I feel like I could really love it. So I think I'm gonna give that first little bit maybe a 4, which is low, but like I'm gonna read it regardless, so we'll see. This was an opposite situation to the last book. The chapters are like 2 pages. So I read the first 4 and it again got me about 15 pages in. This is The Coin by Yasmin Zaher, and it's about a Palestinian woman living in New York. She's a teacher, a middle school teacher, and she has some type of OCD that manifests in being obsessed with cleanliness and being clean. The last sentence of the first chapter is, "You will see that I'm a moral woman, that all I want is to be clean." And like, yeah, girl, 4 chapters in, I see it. This I would probably give an 8. The short chapters and the writing intrigued me. The plot, I think, ends up being she befriends a homeless swindler and the two participate in an intercontinental scheme reselling Birkin bags. Nothing close to that has happened yet. I'm liking it. I'm intrigued. This has been on my TBR on Goodreads since way before it even came out, and then it took me a really long time to actually get it and an even longer time to eventually read it. But I really want to, and I'm really excited about this. Oh my god. The first chapter of this, only the first, made me tear up. Oh my god, okay. This is Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. It starts with this story of the muskrat who dives down to the bottom of the ocean and picks up the handful of mud and puts it on the turtle's back to like make the land that is Turtle Island. She's talking about how humans and nature work together and how the relationship between humans and nature isn't all bad and never has been. Okay, this says, it was through her actions of reciprocity, the give and take with the land, that the original immigrant became indigenous. For all of us, becoming indigenous to a place means living as if your children's future mattered, to take care of the land as if our lives, both material and spiritual, depended on it. Other stuff. Can we all understand the Sky Woman story not as an artifact from the past, but as instructions for the future? Can a nation of immigrants once again follow her example to become native, to make a home? Oh my god, reading that again, oh my gosh, I can't. Okay, so this is an extremely popular book. Everyone has read this. And where have I been? Well, it's actually been on my shelves for like a year. So I think I'm gonna give this an 8. Perhaps a 9. I think I'm gonna give this a 9. Like, this is like, whoa. I feel like in my head, I think Red, White, and Royal Blue was a fluke and that I don't love Casey McQuiston's work. But every time I reread Red, White, and Royal Blue, I love it just as much as the first time. And I really liked the YA I Kissed Chara Wheeler, and I really like this first chapter. Oh my gosh, I really didn't think I would read another Casey McQuiston. Again, I don't know why. Like, the 2 things I've read, I really loved/really liked. So, like, of course I would like this. Obviously, only the first chapter, but I'm already like really into it. I don't think I need to explain to you what this is about, but it's a girl named August who just moved to New York City, and she's struggling a little bit, and she meets this girl on a subway named Jane. And Jane is like stuck in time, or she's like from the past or something. There hasn't been, at the end of the first chapter, she just met her, so the magic hasn't really started yet. August found roommates, moved into an apartment. I love Casey McQuiston's friend groups and the dynamics that they write, and this is no different. The only thing that is like making me nervous is this is so long for a romance. Oh my god, it's over 400 pages, which I think Red, White, and Royal Blue was the same, so I shouldn't feel apprehensive, but it's making me feel apprehensive. Yeah, this was a book that I found it, I think it was in like a little free library. I just remembered that I wasn't gonna read this book, and then I found it for free, and I was like, well, if it's free. And that's also kind of how I feel about The Pairing. Like, I don't think I'm gonna read that. But if I love this, like, I might love Casey McQuiston. I don't know why I'm in denial about that. I'm probably gonna give this an 8. Hello, it's the next day, obviously, and I am primed and ready to get back to reading, so let's just do it. This is Weird Black Girls by Elwyn Cotman. It is a short story collection, and the first story had chapters within it, so I read the first 2 chapters of the first short story because it was like 50 pages. The first story is about this tree. It's nicknamed the Switchin' Tree, where everyone in the town is sort of compelled to beat their children with the branches from this tree. It's like evil, they call it the devil. The writing is very good. I was trying to think of a different adjective, but I couldn't, so it's really good. I think I would give this first story a 6 out of 10. Body Language, Writers on Identity, Physicality, and Making Space for Ourselves, edited by Nicole Chung and Matt Ortile, is about what I just said. It's an anthology of essays. I actually got this because I ordered Fat Black Feminist, and the bookstore sent me this instead. They were out of stock, and so they just sent me this. I've had it for years. And the first essay was about a woman's experience with her mother's cremation while also having breast cancer, and breast cancer being what killed her mom. It was very sad. It was very good. And I think I would give this an 8. Beartown by Fredrik Backman, another one that I don't need to explain to you. I ended up reading the first 3 chapters because that came out to about 15 pages, and we were basically getting just like the barest introduction to, I guess, the main characters. I don't know how many of them we're actually going to be following. It's like a third-person omniscient POV, so I don't know how many of them we're actually going to be following consistently and how many were just like, here are the people in the town. It's about a town called Beartown, and hockey is their whole thing. It's all they have. The community is sort of breaking down. They all kind of are just trying to survive living in this town. There aren't a lot of jobs and there's no tourism, and hockey, having a successful hockey team, is kind of the only hope they have to sort of restore life to their town. And the first chapter was like 2 sentences. Chapter 1. Late one evening, toward the end of March, a teenager picked up a double-barreled shotgun, walked into the forest, put the gun to someone else's forehead, and pulled the trigger. This is the story of how we got there. But yeah, this was good. I'd probably give this like a 6. Future Feeling by Joss Lake is another one that I had already started. I was 17 pages into it, and that is just where I stopped this time as well. I actually remember why I didn't get further into this, and it was because I was so confused. The writing, this came out in 2021, and so at the time I was 15, and this writing, I was not reading a lot of adult books yet, and this writing was like not meandering, but like it goes on some side tangents and asides, and there's some like run-on sentences going in a lot of directions before it gets back to the real point, and my 15-year-old self just like was not into that. I didn't get it. But now I get it, and I think that I could really like this. It's this sort of dystopian world, or just a future world, and the main character Penn, he tries to hex someone, but it happens to the wrong person, and then he gets in trouble with this organization. I don't know. The first little bit I read is just learning about his circumstances. He's a trans man living in New York, and he walks dogs for a living, and he's obsessed with this trans influencer named Aiden, and we meet his roommates. It was pretty good. I think I would give this maybe 6 again. I feel like I'm giving everything a 6. Maybe a 7. Maybe I'd give it a 7. Interesting Facts About Space by Emily Austin is about a woman named Eden who is obsessed with space and irrationally afraid of bald men. And she listens to true crime podcasts, and she's trying to connect with her half-sisters. And in the first chapter, we meet her and the woman whose wife she's been sleeping with. So she comes to Enid's apartment, and they like connect and they talk, and it was like kind of a weird first chapter. I thought this author was Australian. She's Canadian. Didn't know that. Why did I think that she was Australian? Anyways, this like first chapter was like kind of wild and random, but that seems to be like what Enid's life and personality is. Like, stuff kind of happens to her and she's awkward and she lets it. So I think I would give this a 7. I know it's gonna be better than that in the long run, just based on the first chapter. It wasn't super propulsive, but I think I'm gonna like Enid and I'm gonna like this book. So a 7 for now. Slapboxing with Jesus is a short story collection by Victor LaValle. I think this was actually the first thing he published. I go back and forth on Victor LaValle. I've liked some of his books, disliked some of them for sure. So I'm trying to complete his backlist so I can like fully see if I like him. So this and the next book are both Victor LaValle books. And the first story in this is like super short, and the first story was this guy who was just preparing for a hookup with a girl. It wasn't really about anything. It wasn't, oh god, particularly good. So maybe like a 2. This is The Ecstatic, also by Victor LaValle, and it's about a man named Anthony James, and he's just been kicked out of college and been taken back home to live with his mother, his sister, and his grandmother. And they all have mental health issues. I think he is schizophrenic. His mother and his sister get in like physical fights a lot, apparently. And we just got that introduction. That's really all I know. But the back says that his sister enters a beauty pageant, and so the whole family goes on a road trip. Will Anthony's family stick together or explode? With electrifying prose, LaValle ushers us into 4 troubled but very funny lives. So, definitely more intrigued by this than Slapboxing with Jesus, but still, there wasn't a ton to hook me right off the bat. I'd maybe give it a 5. Hey! So, I obviously did not, finish this video, but I'm gonna do it now. So, day 3, it's actually a week later. Crazy how that works, how time flies. We're gonna jump right into it. We're gonna keep going. I'm not gonna give you any excuses, okay? Let's just read. Let's do it. Chain Gang All-Stars by Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah is about a world where prisoners have to fight to the death for their freedom, like gladiator style. And it is a reality TV type competition. I think it was just the prologue giving us the introduction to our main character and how she became one of the top competitors of this whole competition. That's all I kind of know so far. Reading the first chapter, I don't think I'm any more or less interested in reading it than I was when I first bought it, which is very interested in reading it. So I guess I'd probably give it like a 7. I don't know, but if it didn't get any better or worse, would that be a 5? But like overall, it's like a 7 or an 8. So I don't know, probably a 7. I'm very excited to actually read this. I don't know if you know this, but I love books about music. And A Little Devil in America, The Praise of Black Performance by Hanif Abdurraqib is about all types of performance. And I misinterpreted it in my head. I thought it was going to be like specifically about music and Black people's influence on music, and I think it is going to be that, but the first chapter was about specifically dancing, and it was talking about like dance competitions, but the type that is like you dance for as long as you physically can with a partner, and how that like swept the nation. And then he goes on to talk about Soul Train, the TV show. And overall, since I didn't actually pay attention to what this was about, my fault, that's on me, I think I'm probably gonna give it a 5 for intrigue, just because I thought it was gonna be something else. That's my bad, but it's the truth. That's how I felt. So I am gonna still read this. I'm not gonna get rid of it by any means. I definitely think I will find things to enjoy in this, and I think will 100% be worth my time. It just maybe not in the way that I thought it was going to be. So a 5. Ella Minnow P, A Novel in Letters by Mark Dunn, is about a girl named Ella who lives on this island off of South Carolina, and this island is named after the man who created the phrase, "the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog." He like coined that sentence. And so there is this like giant plaque in the center of town that has that phrase written on it, and one day the Z falls off, and so the council decides that everyone on the island can no longer use the letter Z in any way. Can't speak it, can't write it. Rude, by the way. And Ella is writing letters to her cousin, sort of explaining the situation as it's happening. And in the first chapter and letter, it was that first instance of losing the Z and the council deciding that the different punishments for if you use the letter Z. If it's your first offense, you get publicly reprimanded. Your second offense, body flogging and the public humiliation of headstock upon the public square. And your third offense, you'll be banished from the island. And if you don't leave, they're gonna kill you. This is kind of giving me Pigs by, who's it by? Elena Stobarock? Joanna Stobarock, I was close. Again, similar to a few books ago, I am still just the same amount of intrigued and wanting to read it as I was before I read the first chapter. So I'd also probably give this a 7. Okay, the first chapter was like 6 pages and I think I'm giving this a 10. Oh, wow. Okay, so Stay True by Hua Su is a memoir about how him and this other boy named Ken met and became friends, and then Ken died, was killed in a carjacking. And this book is his way of retaining his memories of Ken and their friendship. The back says, Stay True is a coming-of-age story that details both the ordinary and extraordinary, a bracing memoir about growing up and about moving through the world in search of meaning and belonging. And the first chapter was talking about listening to music in the car and taking pictures of your friends and doing like random trivial things together, and it was fun because you're together and there's a good song playing and you managed to take a good picture, and like that's my life, like my friends and music and photography. So I didn't tear up, but I was close. So giving this a 10. Whoa. Rob Sheffield has done it again. Oh my gosh. Love is a Mixtape was like my favorite book of 2024. And this is talking to girls about Duran Duran, one young man's quest for true love and a cooler haircut. I don't know anything about Duran Duran. I could not name a Duran Duran song. I didn't think they were popular. I kind of thought they were like the butt of a joke. What joke? I don't know. I didn't think they were like a big thing. But apparently we were incredibly popular in the 80s. And something I love about Rob Sheffield is that he is able to imbue his writing with such emotion and humor and just like simple facts that moments in time that you were not present for, he makes it feel like you were there. Like he is able to so accurately describe these moments in history, in music history, that not only was I not alive for, I did not even know they happened. Like, who is Duran Duran? I have no idea. But the way he is able to write about them just with so much like passion and love, and I honestly think that even if you are already obsessed with Duran Duran and you were a teenager in the 80s and you know already all of these moments in time that he's talking about, I still don't think that it would be overwritten or that you would find it repetitive or boring, because the way he talks about it it makes you want to read more, and it makes you want to know all of these things that he's talking about. So this is a 10. I love Rob Sheffield. Maybe it's a 9 because it's not getting me as much as Love is a Mixtape. I'll give it a 9. But this is another memoir about talking to girls about Duran Duran. It's about growing up and his music life throughout his adolescence and how different bands shaped him, and that's like my favorite thing ever. A little misogyny was present. I did notice that. So yeah, I am solid in my decision to knock it down to a 9. I really think I'm gonna love this, just like I loved his other book. I haven't read the Taylor Swift book yet because I'm waiting for it to come out in paperback, because I have his other 2 books in paperback, and it is actually really difficult to restrain myself from just buying the hardcover, but I'm being patient, I'm staying strong. Also, not that I want Taylor Swift to die, but I will be so interested to see the work that comes after her death. Sorry, that sounds crazy to say, but there's so many books about her and about her career and her life and her music and her art when she's still actively making art. And I think it will be interesting to see once, whenever she does stop making music, how the rest of her work, of her life's work to come, will inform all of her work up until this point. And not even her discography, but like everything she's ever written, her paintings, like it all just gets completely shifted around whenever the next thing comes out. So while I was so excited that Rob Sheffield wrote a book about her, I also want him to write a book about her entire career. But he's in his 50s and she's in her 30s, so he's probably gonna die before she is. So I'm actually never gonna get that, which is really sad. Anyways, tangent aside, I cannot wait to read that book. I cannot wait to read this book. Pew by Catherine Lacey is about an unnamed, genderless, transient person who sleeps in churches at night, and one day they get found out and taken in by this community, and they nickname them Pew because they were found sleeping in the church pew. The fact that the community is sort of unable to pin down their gender, where they're from, who they are, why they're there, and sort of box them in, leads to some dark actions. Pew's presence begins to unnerve the community, whose generosity erodes into menace and suspicion. This first chapter, it was very much in Pew's head, and we do get one conversation with another person, a gas station attendant who lets them sleep behind the counter one night, but mostly it is Pew talking about the fact that they sleep in churches and the best way to get into certain churches and why certain churches are better for sleeping than others, and talking about how when they look in the mirror they don't see anything and they can't identify any physical parts of themselves, and people always ask, like, what are you? And that's kind of all that first chapter was. I think I'm going to give this a 7. Just because the main plot has not even happened yet. I think like probably the next chapter is when they're gonna find them in the pew, but even though the concept is still very intriguing to me, since kind of nothing has happened yet, I'm gonna give it a 7. Technically, I have these 2 books also on my physical TBR, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Don Quixote. I'm not gonna read the first chapter of them. These are the types of books that the first chapter like isn't going to decide whether or not I read them, like I either read it or I don't. I'm probably gonna read this, I'm probably never gonna read this. That's my hypothesis, which means that this video is complete. Oh my god, we did it, you guys. Are you happy to be done? Because I know I am. Yeah, and the thing is, there's not even that many books on my physical TBR. It's like 30. It took me days. You saw. Anyways, I do think I have a better grasp of what books I want to prioritize. That has been kind of the theme with videos this month in March, is finding a way to kind of nail down what books on my physical TBR am I really gonna love. I don't read a ton of bad books, and I don't often regret books that I read, so it's not a huge deal, especially because I have so few books on my physical TBR. I am already pretty discerning in what books I choose to buy, so it's not a super high stakes situation. But I also now have a better grasp on the actual plots or concepts behind some of these books that the synopsis didn't really give me, or that I didn't read the synopsis for and I just assumed I knew the plot or the premise of the book, and I didn't. I made it up in my head. And now I know. And yeah, that's all I have to say. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.